Pride and Prejudice 2005 is a period piece film based on the classic novel by Jane Austen and my all-time favorite movie. It's a unique love story filled with vulnerability, judgment, and a change in perception. Elizabeth is intelligent and certain in herself. Mr. Darcy is guarded and seemingly arrogant. Despite their contradicting natures, they fall in love after breaking through these exterior walls. However, Mr. Darcy and Miss Elizabeth Bennet are more than just the romantic characters that we know and love. They're a look into the psychology behind pride, prejudice, and bias, and an example of how an alteration in perception can change relationships. Elizabeth is the second born of the 5 Bennet sisters. She's constantly compared to her older sister Jane, yet they're completely different individuals. Elizabeth is extremely witty, using sarcasm to deflect her emotions. Viewers see this banter as amusing and relatable, but a deeper look into it shows a direct example of psychoanalytic theory. Sigmund Freud first introduced psychoanalysis and explained the 3 parts of the human psyche: the id, the ego, and the superego. According to SimplyPsych EDU, the id is the primitive, unconscious part of the psyche that controls urges and impulses. The other unconscious part of the psyche is the superego, which functions as the moral compass. The id and the superego are the sort of devil and angel that sits on a person's shoulders. The mediator between the two is the ego. The ego is the only conscious part of the psyche that's responsible for decision-making and bringing us back to reality. Elizabeth's id is driven by the society she lives in during late 18th to early 19th century Britain. In this society, possessions are passed on to male heirs. Seeing as Mr. and Mrs. Bennet only had their 5 daughters, their estate was to be inherited by the next male in line.
His name is Mr. Collins. He's the dreaded cousin.
Since the estate is to go to Mr. Collins and the Bennet daughters would go unforgotten, Mrs. Bennet sees marriage to a wealthy man as the only solution for survival, which fuels the girl's id. Elizabeth's superego is driven by her belief that marriage should be a matter of love, not a survival mechanism, as well as her pride in herself and her upbringing. Upon first meeting Mr. Darcy, Elizabeth is taken by him. He's intelligent, handsome, and most importantly to her family, wealthy. She is fascinated with him, until she overhears his conversation with Mr. Bingley, the man who's enamored with Elizabeth's sister Jane.
But her sister Elizabeth is very agreeable.
Perfectly tolerable, I dare say. But not handsome enough to tempt me. You'd better return to your partner and enjoy her smile.
After this, we see more of Elizabeth's witty comebacks directed towards Mr. Darcy as he attempts to show amiability towards Elizabeth in a socially awkward way, not knowing that she overheard him. These comebacks are a defense mechanism for her. Defense mechanisms are employed when the ego is unable to mediate the id and the superego, resulting in anxiety. In order to relieve these anxieties, quote, the individual's unconscious mind uses ego defense mechanisms, unconscious protective behaviors that aim to reduce anxiety. Elizabeth knows that she is vulnerable to judgment when she's around Mr. Darcy, Mr. Bingley, and Caroline Bingley, Mr. Bingley's sister. Her inferior social status and her overbearing, embarrassing family are reasons why she knows she could be judged by them, and later on learns that she is being judged by them for that. This causes tension between her id and her superego. She knows that she's drawn to Mr. Darcy by her id, but he has injured her superego with his comments. Her ego takes over with its protection defense mechanisms. She thinks that Mr. Darcy is judging her, so she judges him. She judges him primarily from his conversation with Mr. Bingley and perceives him as arrogant and disregards his attempts to connect with her based on that instance. However, Elizabeth isn't truly judging Mr. Darcy. She's defending her superego from falling in love with someone who could reject her. And a quick reminder, while I'm presenting Freud's theory, it's important to remember that many of Freud's contributions to the psychological world are not commonplace anymore. However, he is still the father of psychoanalysis. His theory was further elaborated on by Erik Erikson, whose theory is very much still alive in the psych world today. Freud's terminology just better matched the analysis. Mr. Darcy is quiet and reserved from the moment we meet him in the ball scene. He really only speaks to Mr. Bingley and to Caroline. This is because Mr. Darcy exhibits what's called an avoidant attachment style. Lindsey Porter defines an avoidant attachment style as, quote, hallmarked by features of instability, including ambivalent behavior, preoccupation, and avoidant responses. People with this sort of attachment style typically have a positive view of themselves while negatively viewing other people, and all of this comes from Bowlby's attachment theory. There are multiple ways Darcy exhibits traits of avoidant attachment. He seemingly struggles with expressing emotions. In the film, you can tell by his body language that he's attracted to Elizabeth, yet he doesn't express that to her until his first proposal. In his first proposal, he starts by saying that not seeing Elizabeth for the past few months has been painful for him, and that he came to Rosings knowing she'd be there. He further goes on to say,
Against my better judgment, my family's expectation, the inferiority of your birth, my rank and circumstance, all these things that I'm willing to put them aside and ask you to end my agony.
He's presenting reasons why he has tried to stop himself from forming a relationship. He feels compelled to maintain his image, yet he cannot stop himself from being in love with her. However, due to the information she learned before his proposal, that he discouraged Mr. Bingley from marrying Jane, her beloved sister, she rejects his first proposal, crediting his interference with the happiness of her sister. Post-rejection, we're met with the letter scene where Darcy verbalizes why he broke up Mr. Bingley and Jane and admits his error. In the letter, he addresses the truth of the downfall of his relationship with Mr. Wickham, one of Elizabeth's former romantic interests. These revelations begin to change her perception of Mr. Darcy. Later on, Elizabeth finds herself at Pemberley, the Darcy estate, where she is reminded of her feelings towards Mr. Darcy. Furthermore, when it's revealed that Mr. Darcy is who paid for the wedding when Mr. Wickham ran off with Elizabeth's sister Lydia, she gains a deeper understanding of Mr. Darcy's true nature. When Mr. Darcy and Mr. Bingley return to the Netherfield estate, they pay a visit to the Bennet house, where Mr. Bingley proposes to Jane. And not long after, Mr. Darcy makes his second proposal to Elizabeth, which she accepts. This sequence of events shows how Mr. Darcy showed emotional vulnerability and honesty about his feelings, and they worked to discredit Elizabeth's bias towards him. There's much debate in the fan base over who is who in terms of the titular themes. Who is the pride and who is the prejudice? In truth, they're both. Elizabeth is prideful in her initial judgment of Mr. Darcy. This pride leads her to be prejudiced towards him. Mr. Darcy is prideful in his social status and superiority over Elizabeth, leading him to be prejudiced towards her. However, pride and prejudice are more than just character flaws. They're the defenses that Elizabeth and Mr. Darcy use. But love is the only thing that can break those defenses down.